Alright, what's up, guys? So, I got a video request from Gothic, and he wants me to talk about people on the black pill don't talk about the shitty parts of having a relationship or friendships, where even if they get along, they will most likely come a day where they fight or argue, and it might end up ending their relationship or making the relationship more toxic. And I'll say, like, in general, people don't talk about this despite the black pill. No one talks about toxic friendships. No one talks about toxic relationships. No one seems to talk about the downsides of having friends that always argue with you and try to get to the point where they just throw insults and they belittle you, you know, or even like your girlfriend or boyfriend. They'll act the same, basically, right? And I think it's normal when people disagree with something. I think it's normal when people have a little bit of an argument, you know, because that happens. But like a healthy argument gets to the point where they agree or disagree. They don't try to result to insults, belittling the person, try to make them feel worse, you know? Right? Like when things get heated, right? You gotta change the subject. You gotta find ways to agree to disagree, pretty much. Not a lot of people do that, especially if you're talking about politics with like your friends or your girlfriend or boyfriend, or talk about like beliefs, like if you're a Christian, atheist, or Muslim, whatever it is, right? You know, like people can get too personal with it, and it can end the relationship, like what you said, if it gets too toxic, you know. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? Because I feel like it's fake when people agree with everybody all the time. It doesn't show like who they truly are, too, on things like that they believe in, you know, their biases, right? Because there has to be some sort of disagreement when you're with a friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend, you know. But it has to be healthy. It can't be toxic, you know. And there is a lot of toxic friendships out there. There's ones that are snakes. Like you can open up about your insecurities and vulnerabilities to them, and you feel like they're trustworthy, but they can use that against you. They'll weaponize them, and it'll get to the point where they want to do it to try to fit in with a certain group to get this status, or they want to try to do it so they can impress this girl or boy, you know. It's something else. And even toxic relationships, right? Like they can be narcs. They can show a little empathy when you're down, or say they try to guilt trip you, you know, in a relationship, or they can be very manipulative. They can be to the point where like you feel like you're controlled in a way, and that's unhealthy. And that's not good in a relationship, right? Yeah, you won't be as lonely if you have friends or a relationship, but you'll be even more lonelier if they're toxic. They're like not their original selves when you met them, you know? So it's difficult. Yeah, I'll say you gotta cut people off, like your friends, or break up with your girl or boy when every time you get in an argument, it's super toxic. It's just to the point where it ruins your mental health, you know? It's not normal when there's too many arguments and it's just always insults all the time. And it doesn't have to be, you know? Need to work together. Need to try to find ways to resolve, like, what's going on, you know? Obviously, it's not an easy thing to do, but people need to try their best, and they need to get to a point where they don't do that type of thing, you know? But what happens if, like, it does result to insults and stuff, and you feel bad? Like, people should apologize, right? People should try to learn from that experience and try not to be like that again, you know? Maybe that can strengthen the relationship where that experience, you changed your ways. Maybe the relationship would work well, or that friendship. But a lot of times it doesn't. Usually it results in a pattern all the time, and it gets worse and worse and worse, you know? That's why, like, even if you have friends that have similar hobbies to you, or say, I mean, like, if you have friends that have similar hobbies as you, it's not always going to be a good friendship if they always harshly criticize you, they're judgmental, they get under your skin, you know what I mean? Like, can't always go by hobbies when you try to find a friendship. Like, I said this in a video, I think. You always want to try to find a friend that's trustworthy, has your back. When there's an argument, they can agree or disagree. They can back off when things get too heated, you know? They apologize and they take accountability for what they have done, you know? That's a good friend to me. And that's the same thing with a relationship, you know? It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of communication, right? And if you have underlying issues and you have, like, these insecurities, right? Shouldn't try to use that to try to put someone down, you know? And try to make them feel worse, pretty much. Yeah, that's why there's a lot of people that are lonely right now. A lot of people can't find genuine people, you know, and there's a lot of people that can't handle an argument and try to resolve it in a way. Need to work together and try to understand each other instead of, like, going the other way. Insults, discriminating, right? It isn't good, you know? When we're not perfect, you know, we all get into arguments. There's times where it can result to that, but it need to be accountable for it and try not to get to like that again. But if it keeps going on and on and on, like a pattern, then yeah, you gotta cut them people off. You gotta break up with your girl. You gotta do all that, you know. And I guess in a toxic relationship, it can be bad when someone's cheating behind your back, having an affair or something. Even worse when you have kids. The kids get even affected the most. You know, their development when they reach an adulthood just makes them have mental health problems, for example, you know? That's why, like, a kid's childhood affects their adulthood a lot of times, you know? Maybe we'll talk about that again, even though I did that multiple times on my old channel and stuff. Yeah, a lot of people don't talk about toxic friendships or relationships out there. People say, oh, I want a friend, I want a relationship, but you could be in that friendship, you can be in that relationship, it can be toxic, and it can be even more stressful than being alone, you know? Pretty much. But I think a friendship or in a relationship, they're always agreeable all the time. I think it's always fake to me. I think there should be some sort of disagreement when you're interacting with someone that's genuine, you know? Because if they're too agreeable all the time, they're afraid of conflict a lot of times, and That's understandable because they don't want to ruin the relationship or something. Or a lot of times they may be agreeable because maybe they're just so fake, you know? Right? Like, there should be healthy disagreements. There should be shit like that in a friendship or a relationship. I'll catch you guys later.